Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Jeong, and this research was completed as part of my graduate thesis from Carleton University with Dr. Sonia Chiasson. Today we'll be presenting our paper, Lime, Open Lock and Blocked, Children's Perception of Colors, Symbols, and Words in Cybersecurity Warnings. "20% of users underwent online malware attack at least once in 2019. Cybersecurity warnings are intended to help users protect their data from these threats. However, research has shown that online security and privacy warnings are frequently ignored or misinterpreted by even experienced adult users. Improving security warnings is important to properly alert users of threats and to encourage them to take appropriate security measures. The Human-in-the-Loop security framework by Craner suggests that better designed warnings that communicate risk more effectively can help mitigate threats. Warning design parameters, otherwise known as design components, include signal colors, symbols, and words. These cue users to the severity of the threat and help determine how much attention and credibility to allocate to the warnings. To be effective, the level of hazard intended by the designer must match the level of hazard perceived by the user, also known as hazard matching. While studies have been conducted to examine warning design for adults, there is little data to establish recommendations for children. It is unclear whether children interpret the design parameters in the same way as adults. Children are one of the fastest growing groups of online users, with those under 18 accounting for 1 in 3 internet users worldwide. Children are online independently by age 10. Many use social networking, watch videos, and play games despite terms of use that restrict use to those 13 and over. Children may be particularly vulnerable because they are not always aware of the risks associated with online threats, nor understand the consequences of their actions. To help children make safer choices online, we must first be able to communicate in ways that are meaningful to them. As a starting point, this paper explores how children and adults comprehend and perceive signal colors, symbols, and words in the context of cybersecurity warnings. Our empirical findings help establish children's perception of security warnings compared to adults and help identify warning message design features that may communicate more effectively to children. We conducted a study with children and adults to see how they compare in their perception of signal colors, symbols, and words. First, participants completed pre-test interview about demographics and online use. Then, they completed the card sorting and ranking activities while using Think Aloud method. We had 3 decks of signal colors, symbols, and words. After each deck was sorted, participants ranked the cards within each category according to their perceived level of danger. Finally, they completed a post-test semi-structured interview regarding their perceived difficulty of categorizing the design parameters and their previous experience with cybersecurity warning messages. We also asked the participants to explain what they would expect to see on warnings that indicate danger. We ordered the cards in each category based on median ranks and conducted inferential stats using SPSS. We analyzed our transcriptions through an inductive open coding content analysis on NVivo software. We recruited 22 child participants between the ages of 10 to 12. We also recruited 22 adult participants between the ages of 18 to 51. We extracted a total of 1,484 excerpts from children and 2,508 excerpts from adults. The excerpts were coded under 7 major themes that we identified during the content analysis to describe participants' perception of the severity of hazard for each signal item, that is, any singular signal color, symbol, or word, and to explain their rationale for the placement of the cards. The themes include level of danger, association with same parameters, association with other parameters, contextual associations, subjective perception, ambiguous, and from previous experience. These are described in detail in the paper. As summarized in Figure 2, both children and adults had similar notions about which signal items indicate the most dangerous and safest situations. As an example, we see that both children and adults agreed on the hazard ranking of green as the safest color. Taking a closer look in Table 3, we see that children and adults had fairly similar rankings for the top 3 most dangerous and safest signal colors, symbols, and words. Dark blue boxes represent complete match and rank. For example, both user groups ranked red as the most dangerous color, and light blue boxes represent a partial match. For example, both groups placed maroon in the top 3, but adults ranked it the second most dangerous, while children ranked it as a third. Both groups found red, skull, and fatal as most dangerous, and green, happy face, protected online as the safest. This suggests similarities in how both children and adults interpret some signal items. We found high agreement on certain items and identified these as the least ambiguous. We also observed some differences in trends. In particular, we noticed children and adults had mixed interpretations on common signal items such as the compound symbols, police officer, closed lock, and the word blocked. While these items may still be viable in warning in combination with other design parameters, their ambiguity is a concern. Compound symbols with an icon within an icon were considered ambiguous. Children consider the symbol circle question mark to be the most ambiguous, while triangle question mark was the most ambiguous for adults. Although both groups had mixed feelings on police officer, children considered it safe and generally discussed the symbol in a positive light, while adults believed that it had a more negative connotation. Interestingly, while both groups associated the closed lock with safety, they had different opinions on the open lock. Given that a closed lock symbol is a common security indicator, it would make sense for users to assume the opposite for the open lock symbol. However, adults found open lock to be safe, while most children placed it in the middle and dangerous categories. On the other hand, few adults thought the open lock symbol was dangerous, while children thought it was safe. These results suggest that the intended binary relationship could be easily misinterpreted for the lock symbol. Both children and adults believe that the word blocked could easily be misinterpreted because it could insinuate that the application they are using may be either safe or dangerous. Reflecting on our findings in the light of the literature, we discuss implications for warning design. These should be explicitly tested for clarity in future work, but they offer promising directions. Simple and basic signal colors, symbols, and words should clearly and appropriately communicate the level of hazard for children. We recommend designers to use the signal items at the extreme ends of a hazard ranking scale since they have lower likelihood of misinterpreted by users. Ambiguous signal items may be misinterpreted or interpreted in multiple ways. We suggest designers to disregard items that may cause confusion and use items unambiguous to both groups, where children and adults' interpretations align. Our results echo existing findings that children often report warnings to adults and largely rely on their parents for support. Designers should further explore this adult-child interaction in the cybersecurity context. We suggest the possibility of providing a kid version for warnings. Both groups found it more difficult to categorize colors than symbols and words. They emphasized that color by itself did not give enough information to establish context for warnings. This suggests that colors may be more effective in communicating risk when used in tandem with other design parameters. Further exploration on how to best combine design parameters to convey risk to children would be beneficial. We opted for a method that enabled us to test many items. It is important to know that participants may respond differently when faced with these signal items as part of an actual cybersecurity warning. Our results can inform follow-up studies by providing a subset of signal items that are most likely effective. We attempted to cover a representative range of signal items, but it is possible that others may be more effective. In our research, we did not ask participants to quantify their arousal strengths, for example, by using a Likert type scale, so we do not know the exact difference between items. Instead, we have come up with ordinal scales of signal colors, symbols, and words from safest to most dangerous. Future studies could test replicability and generalizability of these scales to establish more robust scales. We focus on two user groups, children and adults. Although we recruited our participants through various methods, we acknowledge that our sample was fairly homogeneous in terms of socioeconomic status. This may have impacted their interpretation of the signal items. Future studies could consider participants from varying demographics such as age, gender, and cultural and economic background. Through our research, we make the following 4 contributions. We provided data on children and adults' perceived level of hazards for signal colors, symbols, and words. We identified how the two groups compare in their perceptions, experiences, and expectations for warnings. We identified associations that shape children and adults' risk perceptions. Finally, we discussed implications for the design of cybersecurity warnings for children. Improving security warnings is imperative to properly alert users of existing or imminent threats and encourage them to take appropriate security measures. Although much research has been conducted on warnings with adults, their responses may not accurately reflect the needs of children. Referring back to our research question, we uncovered similarities and differences between children and adults' perception of signal colors, symbols, and words. We also discovered potential concerns with some signal items that are widely used as security indicators. Moving forward, we suggest security practitioners to use a subset of signal items that are least ambiguous for both groups and to keep in mind the individual differences that are outlined in this research. Thank you for watching, and please do not hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or comments.